Have you ever asked yourself, self, what will it take to go from paycheck to paycheck living to being 100% debt free? Have you ever wondered what the journey entails? Well, here we are very early in the new year, and many of you may have found your way to this podcast as part of a New Year's resolution to find some guidance in how to start your financial journey. Today, I'm going to share with you all of the various possible steps that one might face when going from financial zero to financial hero. This is the Debt Free Dad podcast where we help normal, everyday people like you take control of your finances so you can live a happier, less stressful life. My name is Chris Hawkins, and I will be your host for today's episode. My financial journey began in the late 90s. I was working for a quick service restaurant chain that's very popular here in the South, and it was a cash based business and it was a debt free business. So, we as managers, anytime the produce guy showed up or the bread, dairy, any of the vendors, when they brought stuff to each of our locations, we had to take money out of the cash register and pay the delivery person and get a receipt. That's how much this particular company hated debt and how much they relied on being a cash only business. And so my job as the manager every day was to go in and detail all the income that came in, all the expenses. And at the end of the week, I had to take all those receipts and mail them to the corporate headquarters. So I decided, well, you know what? I want to fix my finances. I want to become debt free. So I'm going to do it the same way my company did it. And so I started every day entering in my transactions for the day, categorizing things, printing out a summary sheet or a journal for the day, stapling the receipts to that piece of paper and putting it in a binder. Well, fast forward about 3 months, and I forgot to get a receipt one day. And the next day, my wife, she couldn't find a receipt. So there was the whole system flushed down the toilet. Wasn't going to work, so I gave up. A couple years later, I'm like, you know what? I really need to figure out how to manage my money. So I started over again. Same method, and guess what? Same result. So fast forward, I sort of had enough. I decided this time I am not going to stop. And part of what I did was I simplified things and I allowed myself in my mind to make the decision ahead of time that regardless of what happened, I was going to fix it and move on and not allow myself to go back to the very beginning. It was much more important to be mentally prepared than knowing really what to do. And so fixing my finances was more about fixing me and changing how I think, not finding some magic pill that made it all go away. So eventually I started teaching personal finance at the high school level. And many years later, I got into financial coaching. And it was through financial coaching that I learned about other people's struggles. And what I found was that I had a similar pattern to what they were going through. And so over time, I mapped out the various possible steps that not only myself, but also my clients could have gone through. And what I discovered in my journey and their journey was that in order for them to be successful, just like myself, they had to overcome their mental blocks. For them, it wasn't as much about how to get out of debt, but rather understanding how their mind played a role in their journey. And it all begins with the fact that you have a problem. And there's a pretty good chance that you don't even recognize that you have a problem. You're not yet aware that something is going on. Maybe you've been living carelessly financially without knowing it. Maybe you're already late on a payment or two, but you don't yet understand how your behavior has led to this. You've got a financial problem and you don't even know it. But at some point, you're going to recognize it. You're going to see that there is a problem and how severe it is. And maybe you've become more chronically late on your payments. Maybe you're really starting to feel the stress. Well, most people living paycheck to paycheck are eventually going to recognize there's a problem. So the next thing that's going to happen is most of you are going to deny that you have a problem. So you've got it, you sort of recognize it, but then you go, nah, not me. I'm normal. Everybody I talk to lives paycheck to paycheck. They're all struggling. They don't have enough money every month. So I don't have a problem. This is just the way things are. Well, at some point, if you're going to progress, you're going to have to accept that you have a problem. As long as you keep denying it, you're never going to get anywhere. So the journey is actually going to take another step when you accept that you have a problem and you realize that something's got to be done. Now, for a lot of people, you may accept you have a problem, but you're not going to make the decision to do anything about it. But if you're going to be successful in this journey, you're going to have to accept that you have a problem so that you can move on and find a way to solve your problem. Now, the question is what do you do next? A lot of people will do nothing, but some you're going to look at the past. You're going to say, okay, there's got to be a reason why I have this problem. It has to be something that I've done wrong or somebody else has done wrong. And you start looking at the past. You look at decisions and you want to try to find a reason. And eventually, what's going to happen here is you're not going to point the finger at the real problem, which is you. And eventually, that's going to lead to blame. You're going to blame somebody else for why you are where you are. It could be your spouse, your boss, your friend, who knows? Now, few people are actually going to see where the true blame lies, and that is with themselves. So, those who are able to recognize that they put themselves there through poor decisions, maybe poor planning, those are the people who recognize that I am the problem. And if I'm the problem, I'm the solution. Those are the ones who are going to eventually be able to move on. But unfortunately, too many people are going to keep blaming somebody else. And you know what happens when you keep blaming somebody else? You eventually have resentment. And at this stage, you truly believe that you have a problem, but that problem is a result of somebody else's actions or decisions. And the more they dwell on the past, the more they're going to get angry. And the more they get angry, the more they're going to blame others. And they create a vicious cycle that's so bad that they can't see the road forward. So the next group in this journey is at some point, if you get past the resentment, you're going to start looking for solution. And so you start asking people questions. You start reading books. You listen to podcasts such as this. You're looking for answers. You read. You're inquisitive. And what's going to happen is you're going to start processing this new information. Okay, this person says this book says that, this podcast says this, and you're going to try to analyze everything that's coming into your mind, everything that you're thinking about. And inevitably, that's going to lead to some level of confusion. Wait a minute. I've got a lot of people telling me that I should be doing A, B, C, and D, but A, B, C, and D is what put me in the position I'm in now. But I've got somebody like the Debt Free Dad podcast. They're telling me to do something totally and completely different. And that's so different. It's so unlike what everybody else is doing. I mean, that can't be right. And so you've got some level of confusion. And with confusion comes fear. And when we're fearful, we do not want to change. We stay stuck right where we are. We don't move forward. And because of fear, we keep having a problem. We probably will start even denying that there's a solution, or we'll start denying that we can even accomplish it. So the denial phase kind of changes a little bit. But if you're going to move forward, if you're going to complete your financial journey, you're going to have to accept that there is fear, there is an unknown, and the only way forward is to try something different. Try something different than what you've been doing. You've got nothing to lose at this point. So this sort of brings me to the next grouping. So think about how this has worked. You've had a problem, you didn't even recognize it, but eventually you recognize it. You probably went through some level of denial before you accepted it. That was a group. And then, of course, the next part is you start looking at the past. Why do I have this problem? You get angry, you blame others, and you get resentful. But some of you are going to move on. You're going to look for solutions. You're going to process what you're learning, all this new information, and you're going to be confused. And then you're going to have fear. So the question is what do? You have to keep moving forward. Remember, this is not a linear path. You don't finish one step before the next. A lot of times you're working on multiple steps at the same time. Just like I talked about, communication, goals, action, learning from your failures. The more you do that, the more you're going to persevere. Many of you probably have gone backwards multiple times, but you keep picking yourself up, you keep on the journey. And so when you make it this far, what's going to happen? You're going to start to see a mental change. And what's going to happen is you're going to let go. And what I mean by that is The fear is gone. You actually can see a path forward. You don't care what other people think about you. You know that you have goals to reach and you're willing to do whatever it takes to win. And when you get to this phase, that's when you're really going to start focusing. And one day you're going to find yourself completely out of debt, or maybe out of debt except for your home. You're going to find yourself aggressively adding to your retirement accounts. Your net worth is going to start to explode. Maybe you're going to pay cash for your kids' college. There's a level of adrenaline right here as the victories start to pile up. And you're going to start to see that, wow, we can accomplish some things that we never, ever thought possible. We started this journey maybe just to get out of debt, but we figured out how to get out of debt. We let go. We let the victories pile up. And now we're doing some really cool things. And that's where the last major step of the journey is success. Now, that's going to be defined differently by everybody. Each individual, each couple is going to define success differently. But at this phase, you're no longer worried about money. And now you've become the inspiration to others and you're financially at peace. So now that I've laid it all out, remember, you've got a problem, you don't yet recognize it. Eventually, you recognize it, you may deny it, but eventually you accept it. Then you start looking at the past. You get mad and you blame, and you get angry and you get resentful. But eventually, you're going to make up your mind that I've got to get past this. And so you start looking for solutions, you process those solutions, and confusion enters in. And with confusion comes fear. But if you can get past that fear, you start communicating, you create goals, an action plan, and then you're going to find failure. It's going to happen. You talk about it, set some new goals, try something different, and you persevere. And the more that you persevere, the more you're eventually going to let go. The victories are going to pile up, and eventually you're going to find success. That's the roadmap. Now, I mentioned to you earlier, I want to give you one thing that you can do to maybe quicken this process a little sooner. Action is the number one thing that you can do. You can save yourself weeks and months, maybe even years of misery by just doing action. And when it doesn't work, let's set new goals. Let's try something different. Fail again, learn from it, set new goals, talk about it, try something different, persevere. And I think you're going to find that you can find financial success a lot quicker than you possibly thought.